Trey, since you didn't complete the quiz for this one, you'll get to sit this one out. And we'll start with question number 1. How does the browser URL change when navigating through a single page app? And how does a user expect the URL to change as they navigate through a browser app?
Yeah, so I just said that in a single page app, the URL never changes, and that can become an issue uh, since the back button doesn't work and the user is not able to bookmark or navigate to a specific page.
Yeah,
They will remain
exactly.
in one page of the app.
Yeah, the bookmark thing was another good point that you brought up that I didn't mention earlier. I did mention the back button basically becomes useless because you can't go back to where you were. So that was a good answer. Next, what NPM package can be used to make navigating a React app to make navigating a React app behave as users expect?
That's the package we installed, which is the React Router DOM.
Exactly, React Router DOM. And next, which React router components can be used to set up your app's navigation?
So there were multiple within the app that was provided or within like the exercise.
Hmm.
I believe one of them is browser router. That's like the main one that wraps the entire app component.
Yeah.
And and then we have like the route and then the nested routes and then the individual route components nested within.
Yeah, those three are the main ones that we need. Everything else, there's more stuff to it, links, outlet, but the main ones we absolutely must have are browser router to wrap our entire app, routes, and then nested within them individual routes. Perfect. Next question. How does React Router match the browser URL to one of your app's React components?
So it compares whatever is in the URL to each path within your route components, and then it basically displays whatever matches with whatever
Exactly.
component matches.
So it checks the URL path against, just want to clarify that's against the path props, right? So whatever's on here is going to compare to the path prop and display that. Exactly. Um, and then next question, what is the purpose of React Router's outlet component?
So that one, I didn't get to it specifically, but the reading did mention that it's useful for whenever you want to create like a whenever you want to add a header or a footer within your app. So how that would tie into the whole.
Yeah, so essentially, the outlet component is when you have nested elements, uh, it is used to render the nested element and the parent element. In our example, we had a header that was always visible, and then the nested individual route with their elements. So you're right on. Next question. What React router hook is used to access route path dynamically? I'm sorry. What React router hook is used to access route path dynamic segments, those that start with the colon and the path?
That's the use params hook.
Use params, exactly. And then good one thing to note in there is that they must match the way we wrote them, so it is case sensitive. But that's exactly right. And last question, what React router hook is used to navigate programmatically?
That would be the use navigate hook.
Use navigate, exactly. And that was really useful for instance, if we have a form and a user submits it, and then we want to automatically redirect them back to a main page or something of the like, we can do so programmatically by calling on a specific uh, method or function that we import. Perfect. So next, let's take a look at the code. This one right here is the code that we had before. And I wanted to point them out side by side to show some differences between the two. But here, what we're doing is we are rendering the page depending on what we have in state. So for instance, we start with dashboard, and then if we wanted to navigate to details, we would set that to details. So that's a lot closer to the way we did view swapping in TypeScript, if you remember how to do that. The difference is that we are, instead of hiding via CSS and using display none properties, instead we are rendering the page that matches what we have in state. So we still have a variable that it would match to, and then we would only render that page if it matches what we have in state. Now, let's take a look at the difference between that and we're using React Router DOM. Inside of our app, we have everything wrapped inside routes. And then if you saw the example on there, I know I mentioned that it was very similar, but it really is almost the same. We have our individual routes wrapped in this routes component. We have our navigation element, which is the header for us, which we put the path as just slash. We have the element at index, which is the dashboard. And that's what's going to show when there's nothing else, no other additional route in there, but just the main, I guess, route. Next, we have our details. That one has, it takes a parameter of item ID, and it'll render the details. We have our about, and we have the star to catch everything else and render that not found element. If you look at the way we have it here, it's checking for undefined. So that's not really ideal for showing the not found page, because if we put, that would just be some sort of error where somehow the page that we clicked on didn't get, there was a typo or something when we typed the page. This one isn't really going to catch everything that isn't already about. Like this one will, you put gibberish and then you'll be able to get to that 404 page. This way would not do the same thing. So it's just view swapping and it's dynamically rendering the page that we want based on what's in state. Okay, so another thing I didn't show, but it seems like you guys had no problem with and you understood fully, is that you must wrap everything inside the browser router. So I left that for you guys to figure out, and it looks like you guys had no problem with it. Here we've done it in main. You could potentially also do it inside of here, but this is just a very good way of making sure that it's wrapped entirely and nothing is missed. Because if we had some functions out here, function whatever, this would not be inside of the context of the browser router. So the best place to wrap it is inside of the main TSX file. Okay, and next, let's take a look at the details page, since that one does have the params hook, which we import just like we did our other files or other components, link and use navigate from React Router DOM. This is how we extract the parameters, and use params when called as a function is going to return an object. So from that object, we can extract item ID, since that's what we're expecting to pass in there, or any other. This can be comma separated for as many parameters as we want. In this case, we only have the one item ID. And in there, we have our asynchronous function. This is not new to us. We know how to now declare an asynchronous function inside of use effect. And we are only calling on that function if that item ID is present. What else? Here we have how we navigate programmatically. We also call the hook, but we must assign it to a variable. This does not have to be called navigate, but that's what they call it in the documentation. So that's the perfect name for it. So you create a variable navigate assigned to the return value of use navigate. And this will be a function that we can call by putting the path that we want to navigate to programmatically in there. So once we handle save, or once we call on our handle save function by clicking on, oops, yeah, that is bad luck. Once we, by clicking on the save button, we have the alert, which stops the execution of the rest of the code until we dismiss that alert. And then once we do and resume the execution of the code, we call on the navigate function, which will take us back to our dashboard. Let's see what else. Yeah, there's a lot of tailwinds in here. If you wanted to learn how to use it and what they are, I recommend looking at the documentation, but some of the names are pretty self-explanatory. We wrap everything in a container by calling on the flex class name. This is how we add display flex, and the display direction is flex column. Did we have any questions on React Router DOM and how it works? Any of the components? No? Okay. Well, in that case, I don't think we need to be doing code read for this one. But if there are no other questions, I'll just show the rest of the code, and then from there, we'll call it a day. You guys are welcome to finish working on this. If you were close, just submit it so I can get that return back to you and grade it. But otherwise, that'll be it for today. I did want to show the header. That's important because this outlet is something that throws off some people where they don't know that how it works. This one's a little different. If you noticed from looking at the example and from looking at the code here, this all these routes are self-closing, but the route that has the header is not. We have an opening and a closing. So essentially, these are all children element of this other route. And the reason why we're able to display them on there is because we have an outlet which lets through what they have, the content of that functional component through the outlet, and we are able to display both the header and the other routes at the same time. So this one is different. I think it's easy for a lot of people not to notice, especially if you don't have your indentation properly. That's why it's important to format document regularly, that this is all inside of this route right here, and this is not self-closing. So we looked at the outlet, we looked at the params, we saw the use navigate and how to programmatically navigate to a different place within React Router DOM. We saw that we can click the back button and it works as we expected. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this one. Any questions? All right. Well, in that case, I will stop recording now.